They often say, New York doesn't look at anyone for more than 3 seconds. But that morning on the cobblestone sidewalk outside Bergdorf Goodman, beneath a strip of golden November sunlight, the whole street came to a stop. Because of one hand, a dark-skinned hand with a few faint calluses gently resting on the hood of a crimson Ferrari SF90, and then a shout sharp as a blade. "Get away from my car, now!" Ariel Monroe jerked her hand back as if she'd touched fire. A tall man in an expensive grey suit stormed over, cold eyes like he'd just walked out of a corporate war room. Grayson Thorne, CEO of the most powerful social network in the country, Billionaire, and most importantly, the owner of the car. He didn't ask, didn't wait, just stared at her with that look she'd seen too many times in life, the look of someone who didn't care who you were, only that you were someone they didn't want near. "Do you have any idea what that car is worth?" "I was just what?" "Touching something you can't afford to breathe near." Ariel straightened. She didn't lower her head, but she didn't retaliate either. She just looked at the car once more, as if saying goodbye to something beautiful she once admired and had now been cast away from. "Sir," she said, voice soft as wind, "if you value this machine as much as you seem to, you might want to check the hybrid calibration system. It's running hot." "Excuse me." "The left rear tire's wearing uneven. The front struts are sitting too low. The brake fluid's down 1/2 inch. And your exhaust's showing discoloration." Grayson laughed a laugh caught between disbelief and disdain. "What are you, some kind of car psychic?" "No," she said. "I just listen when machines speak." A few people nearby began to gather. Someone had already pulled out a phone, not out of admiration, just because something unusual was happening. A black girl in a worn denim jacket had dared to touch a world that was never meant to welcome her. Grayson opened his mouth to say more when his phone rang. "Mr. Thorne, this is Chun from Exclusive Auto Services Critical Alert. Your Ferrari's hybrid calibration just triggered a red line warning. We need to send our specialist urgently." Grayson frowned. "Then send her." There was a 1/2-second pause. "She's already there." "What Ariel Monroe? She's the only one we trust for this model. She was passing by. Guess she noticed what the system just confirmed." Grayson turned around, and for the first time in his life, he saw her, not through skin color, not through her jacket, not through the lens of a city that taught him to overlook, but as a person, with deep eyes, sleeves stained with engine grease, and a name that supercar owners whispered with confidence when entrusting her with million-dollar engines. Ariel handed back the phone, her voice calm without a hint of triumph. "I believe that would be me." 9 miles away in the industrial zone of Jackson Heights, the sound of metal clinking echoed steadily through a small, unmarked garage, with nothing but 3 faded silver letters on the glass door, Monroe and Daughters. A McLaren P1 rested on the lift, its complex inner workings nearly exposed the beating heart of one of the most intricate machines mechanical engineering has ever produced. Ariel leaned in, brushing a coil of curly hair behind her ear, and slipped her hand deep into the engine bay. "Still not right," she murmured. Not because she lacked data, but because she felt it. She felt it in the off-tempo vibration. In this way, the connecting bolts didn't respond like they should. In the breath of the machine, a thing most people thought was lifeless, but to her always spoke, if you listened long enough. Her father, Mr. Monroe, used to say, "Ari, you don't just fix machines, you talk to them." He died when she was 21. A stroke right here in this very garage while adjusting the steering column for a 17-year-old boy who had just won a scholarship. Ariel had wiped the grease from her hands, dragged his body out from under the car. And from that day on, no one called this place Monroe & Sons. She didn't go to college. Instead, she lived among engines, learning from every rattle, every grind, every scarred gear. At 24, she restored the transmission of a Koenigsegg Regera using nothing but her hands and intuition, no digital meters. At 25, she became the youngest American certified to service European electric hypercars. At 26, she turned down 3 offers from Porsche because they only wanted me for their brand image, not to touch the cars. And now at 28, Ariel Monroe was a name whispered among supercar owners. No website, no signage, no press photos. When their vehicles died, there was only one person they trusted to hear the heartbeat that had gone off rhythm. But her success didn't exempt her from bias. She had once walked into a technical briefing only to be mistaken for the coffee server. She once test drove a Pagani Huayra, and police asked for her ID 3 times in the same hour. She had once loved someone, a colleague, only to discover he was using her skills to secure contracts for himself. She just helps with the minor stuff, he said in front of the clients. From then on, Ariel built walls. Not from brick, but from silence. Silence to survive. Silence to move forward. Her phone buzzed. It was Derek, her assistant. "Ari, we've got a critical failure alert from exclusive auto Ferrari SF90 limited edition. The hybrid system reports faults. I sent you because you're the only one who can fix it in time. I'm already on site. You happened to be there before they called." Happened? Yeah, you'll understand. Now she did. The red Ferrari, the ice-cold man, the crowd, and that look. Ariel adjusted her hair tie, stepped into the car, her eyes no longer surprised, no longer angry. There was only one thing left in her with absolute clarity. I'll let the machine answer those who never learned to hear people. The red Ferrari SF90 glided through the security gate of IRI 52, a luxury high-rise where private elevators led straight from underground garages to individual penthouses. Grayson Thorne walked ahead, entering a passcode. Ariel followed, hands in her jacket pockets, saying nothing. No need to. The elevator opened on the 52nd floor. No lobby, no hallway, just an open glass chamber overlooking Central Park, white with the glare of a winter afternoon. "This way," Grayson gestured, his voice low, as if trying to erase the memory of shouting at her on the street just an hour ago. They stepped into the rooftop garage, a space that felt almost surreal. Glossy white epoxy floors, LED lights with color temperature controls, vintage car posters in gold frames. Every vehicle from classic Aston Martins to next-gen electric Porsches is parked exactly 1.2 meters apart, like pieces in a museum. Ariel didn't look up. She removed her gloves, placed her diagnostic kit on a stainless steel bench and said, "Hybrid calibration. I'll need access to the CAN system and auxiliary power. Left side, near the lift. Nice garage. I designed it myself. Didn't hire anyone." "Really?" She tilted her head, glancing at the latest snap-on diagnostic station. "Funny. You installed the current flow in reverse polarity at the connector. Designed, but never operated." Grayson frowned. He'd never been corrected inside his domain, especially not by someone like her. She plugged the connector into the OBD2 port. The screen flashed a bright red error code, hybrid module overload. 12% deviation, precisely what she'd called out on the street. Grayson said nothing. For the first time in years, he felt like he wasn't in control of the game. "Where did you learn this trade?" "My father. No degree. Just a good pair of ears. You never went to MIT or Caltech." "Num. I chose to listen to machines rather than professors explaining why black women are less suited for heavy engineering. I wasn't trying to imply no need. I'm used to how rich men apologize without ever admitting they were wrong." The air in the garage turned colder than the wind outside. Ariel removed the engine shield, her hands so precise it was almost effortless. Grayson, for reasons he couldn't explain, found himself stepping half a pace back as if watching someone operate on his own heart and unable to intervene. "How long have you been doing this?" "Since I figured out how to turn bolts instead of painting nails." "I only ask because Because you think hands like these don't belong under the hood of a Ferrari. She raised her hand, calloused fingertips, traces of grease beneath her nails, but her eyes never left his. You know what sets me apart, Mr. Thorne. What's that I hear? What others ignore. Machines, arrogance, and prejudice. He said nothing, not because he agreed, but because there were no words to refute a truth delivered without raising a voice. The diagnostic machine emitted a steady pulse, like the heartbeat of a machine trying to recalibrate its rhythm. Ariel bent low under the hood, plugging the electronic connectors into the hybrid module. Grayson stood a few steps away, arms folded, not giving orders, not showing arrogance, just silently watching. Do you do all this alone? He asked, as if the words had been waiting in his throat for a long time. Since I was 21, she replied. No help. There was. Back then, my father. He was the first person who taught me how to touch a car without hurting it. Grayson blinked at her choice of words. Touch. Without hurting, machines have memory too, she said. When handled carelessly, they remember. A broken clutch isn't always poor design. It's often someone failing to respect the structure within. She paused, eyes growing distant as if looking straight through the steel walls and reinforced glass around them. My father died of a stroke under a car. No one noticed for 20 minutes. They thought he was just working hard like always. Grayson said nothing. He didn't know what to say. A woman had just described her father's death not with tears, not in dramatic tones, but with a voice so calm it hurt. And you? She asked, still not looking up. Who taught you to love cars? My father. Is he still alive? He died when I was 16. Caused stroke. Just like yours. A quiet pause, but not an uncomfortable one. It was a shared breath between two people who had lost their fathers in a way no one is ever prepared for. Grayson stepped closer to a covered vintage Mustang. This was the last car we worked on together. 2 days later, he died. 3 weeks after that, my mother sold it. Said it reminded her of sad memories. He clenched his fists. I wasn't angry that she sold the car. I was angry she never actually drove it. Ariel looked up, her hand still resting on the engine. And that's when you started buying the most expensive cars in the world to replace the memory. No, to control it. He exhaled. I lost my father, and with him, I lost a sense of safety. The world felt too fragile. But cars, they were different. I put in gas, they ran. I fixed them, they obeyed. No betrayal, no abandonment. She stood up, wiping her hands with an old cloth. Her eyes softened. You know, what I once loved someone in the industry too. Thought he saw me. But then I found out. He only borrowed my hands to sign contracts for himself. He told clients I was just his technical assistant, when in truth, I did all the work. Grayson looked at her. For the first time, I truly looked. Not as a service provider, not as a black woman who knew more than he expected, but as a human being, one who had been hurt and still stood tall, alone. She powered the system back on. The screen displayed new metrics steadily stabilizing. You asked why I touched your car on the street, she said, still not looking at him. It was because I heard it crying in pain. But this time, it wasn't the car that didn't know how to listen. It was its owner. I need a tube of copper grease. What to prevent contact oxidation? Third cabinet. Orange label. I've never... Grayson Thorne, the man who once signed $100 million deals with a single nod, now stood frozen in front of a tool cabinet. Ariel didn't turn around. Still crouched beneath the engine bay, her voice was steady, as if training a first-year apprentice. Count from left to right. Pick the right one. Don't guess. And don't spill it. Got it, Chief Engineer? The joke slipped out as a reflex, but when Ariel turned her head, her eyes were sharp. Grayson, this isn't a performance, and I don't need you to be charming. I need you to be accurate. He handed her the correct tube of copper grease. She took it without thanking him. Not out of pride, but because between them now stood a principle. Do it right, or don't step in. 30 minutes later, sweat began to bead at the back of Grayson's collar. His back ached from bending over to hold the fuse panel steady. Meanwhile, Ariel moved like a dancer in her domain. Her hands were fluid, never faltering whether unscrewing a tiny bolt or connecting an intricate power line. Have you ever touched this car with your own hands? She asked. Me. Yes. Hands-on. Not just ordering a technician. No. I thought about learning once. But the company grew too fast. People started doing everything for me, and you forgot what it felt like to repair the thing you love. Maybe. A few minutes passed. Ariel reached out behind her. Socket number 7. Grayson handed her number 6. She didn't scold him, just looked up slowly. Have you ever hired the wrong person to run a branch? Many times. Then don't hire the wrong socket. They looked at each other. Then both laughed. For the first time in that garage, their laughter wasn't a defense, nor a mockery. It was just the sound of two people unexpectedly finding something simple and human in a world built on extravagance. When Ariel crawled out from under the car, her face was smudged with oil, a few curls loose from her bun, yet her eyes were glowing. It's done. The hybrid system doesn't need to be replaced, just needed a central control recalibration. So, the car will run. It'll run smoother than the day you bought it. She stood, pulled off her gloves and turned to him. But I'll need to drive it back to my shop in Queens to complete the fine-tuning. You'll drive it. You think I'm not capable? Grayson swallowed. The bias in his voice from earlier that morning crept back like a shadow that refused to fade. Ariel stared him straight in the eye. I test drove the Koenigsegg Regera in Nevada. 2 weeks after that, the Bugatti Chiron Supersport. You think this Ferrari scares me? Grayson looked down, said nothing. Then, like he was handing over a part of his own heart, he placed the key into her palm. I'm sorry. Not for this morning, but for how long it took me actually to see you. Ariel took the key and walked to the car. She adjusted the seat, the mirrors, the gear shift, not rushed, not flashy. Just like someone entering a space that had always belonged to her. I think, Grayson called out from outside the car, I'm going to miss this feeling. What feeling? The feeling of not being the smartest person in the room. Ariel didn't turn. She just smiled faintly into the rearview mirror. Better get used to it. It'll last. Ariel's garage in Queens had no gleaming glass, no white epoxy floors, no AI-integrated control panels. Just stained walls, an old radio playing soft jazz, and late afternoon shadows streaming through wooden shutters. Grayson stood in the middle of it all, his once expensive grey suit now tinged with the scent of metal and grease. Doesn't exactly look like a place for a Ferrari, he murmured. People didn't think a black girl could be the best in the country at fixing one either, Ariel replied without turning around. She removed the engine cover and attached a compensation calibration device. Her hands moved with precision, but her eyes no longer held the coldness from earlier. Her voice had deepened, as if every layer of armor had been stripped off with the turning of each bolt. I never imagined someone like you would one day stand in this shop. Someone like me. Someone who doesn't look down, but listens. Grayson fell silent. He walked over to a wooden workbench where an old faded photo sat in a cracked frame. A tall black man with a gentle smile had his arm around a tiny girl holding a wrench that was bigger than her forearm. He was the first person who believed in me. Your father? Yeah. The only one who ever told me that even calloused hands could still touch something delicate. She paused, her hands still. Has anyone ever believed in you like that? No one. Really, I'm a product of expectations. There's no room for belief, only results. She turned around. The slanted evening light through the shutters softened her gaze. Do you ever feel the more successful you become, the lonelier you get every single day? For a long while, neither of them spoke. Only the slow ticking of the wall clock filled the air. Then Ariel pulled a small iron ring from a drawer and slid it onto her thumb. This used to be my father's. He wore it while working. Said machines don't care if you're rich or poor. They only respond to those who know how to touch them right. She looked at Grayson. Do you know how to touch something? Without hurting it, Grayson didn't reply. He stepped forward very quietly and handed her a cloth, not to wipe her hands, but to gently wipe the smudge of oil, resting on her cheek like a tear she would never let fall. Have you ever loved someone? He asked. I have, and now I love the quiet. The answer stunned him, not because it was cold, but because it was true. In a world where everyone speaks too much, she chose silence and let the machines speak for her heart. 3 days later, Ariel stood in front of a revolving glass door holding a thick folder. She wore a dark grey engineer's coat, her boots still streaked with smudges of machine grease. The Thorn Automotive Holdings building rose 52 stories high, gleaming, imposing like a palace of illusions never meant for anyone outside the elite. Grayson had invited her with one promise: I want them to see your ability, not just under the hood. Ariel stepped into the boardroom. Inside, nearly 20 people, mostly white men in tailored suits and silk Italian ties, were conversing in deep, fast voices, as though only what was rushed could be worth millions. Before she could speak, one man turned and asked, You brought the presentation materials. I'm not an assistant, she said calmly. Oh, then what are you, the elevator tech? Another man joked. Grayson entered the room just in time to hear that. Ariel turned to him, waiting for him to speak up, but he merely said, Gentlemen, this is Ms. Monroe. She helped on the recent Ferrari calibration. Helped, not led, not solved. Just helped. Ariel didn't react. She didn't show anger. She opened her folder and laid it on the table, a detailed schematic of the hybrid calibration system she had designed, complete with heat maps and torque analysis. Based on these projections, she explained the 2026 hybrid system can reduce response lag by up to 18% and cut residual heat by 22%. Who validated this data? One shareholder asked. I did, she replied. You'd better get someone with real credentials to sign off on it. At that moment, Ariel looked to Grayson again. He stood still, silent. No words of defense. Just, we'll take it under consideration. After the meeting, as the others filed out, Grayson approached her. I know what just happened. Felt a bit what? A bit unfair. But this is a tough environment. I need to convince them gradually. Gradually, she said, her mouth tightening. You mean, gradually give credit to the person who designed something they didn't even understand? He said nothing. You're afraid of offending them, but you're not afraid of losing me. She didn't wait for a response. She gathered her folder, adjusted her coat, and spoke in a voice cold enough to chill steel. The first time I stepped into your world, no one welcomed me. But I came anyway. This time, I'm walking out. Because now, I choose to leave. The revolving glass door closed behind her. Grayson stood in the empty boardroom, staring at the space where she had stood. And for the first time, he felt fear. Not fear of losing a design, but fear of losing the one thing in his life that had never been bought. The trust of someone honest. 3 days after the meeting, Grayson sat alone in the rooftop garage. No lights, no climate-controlled air system. Just the Ferrari, silent, unmoving, like him. On the table lay Ariel's folder. He had read it 7 times. Each schematic, each calculation surpassed anything his 6-figure R&D team had ever produced. His largest shareholder, Vincent Hale, called from Chicago. "What are you going to do with her design? I'm not using it." "Why not? It works." "Because I don't deserve to hold it if I can't say her name in front of a room." "Grayson, are you putting the entire EV project at risk just to defend the pride of an unknown engineer? Numb. I'm protecting the last shred of integrity this company has left." He hung up. Then I removed Hale's access card from the management system. He knew the act would cost him half of next year's investment budget. But for the first time, he didn't care. At that exact moment, in a small garage in Harlem, Ariel stood before a worn-out passenger van repairing it for a family who lived on the road. A little girl sitting inside looked at her, eyes wide and bright. "Are you an engineer?" "Yes." "Do you fix luxury cars too?" "I do." "Does it make you sad when they don't believe you're as good as the white men?" Ariel paused. "I'm used to it. If it were me, I'd yell it out loud." "And I?" Ariel replied, tightening the bolt. "I fix it, and let the car speak for itself." That afternoon, as Ariel was locking up the garage, a black car pulled up. The window rolled down. It was Grayson. No suit, no tie, no entourage. Just him, with tired, honest eyes. "I'm not here to apologize," he said. "Good. I don't need an apology. I came to return something." He handed her a box. Ariel opened it. Inside was the old iron ring, her father's. She had left it behind at the meeting. "I didn't dare hold on to it too long. It belongs to someone brave." She went quiet. "I removed Hale from the company. You're insane." "Maybe. But I'd rather rebuild this company from the ground up than let it stand on my cowardice." Ariel looked at him for a long time. "You came here because you lost me, no. I came here because I found myself in the way you looked me in the eye without fear." The Harlem wind rustled through the tin roof. Silence. Ariel spoke slowly. "If you want to fix what you broke, then start where you forgot how to learn the first car. Not the most expensive one, but it is one full of flaws. Just like you." Monday morning. The small Harlem garage had just opened. Grayson had been waiting since 6 a.m. No chauffeur, no temperature-controlled espresso. Just him in a plain T-shirt holding a brand-new toolbox, eyes stripped of pride. Ariel wasn't surprised. She glanced at her watch and said, 6:03. "You're 3 minutes late. Got stuck on the subway. Next time walk." "Yes, Chief Engineer." The first car Grayson had to work on was a 1998 Ford Ranger. The client is an elderly black veteran living on a fixed income who uses the truck to take his grandson to school. "This isn't a Ferrari." Grayson grimaced. "Exactly, and it doesn't need admiration. It needs to run," Ariel replied. Over the next 2 weeks, Grayson learned to do things he'd never touched before: dismantle parts without breaking joints, wipe sweat without soiling the spark plugs, hold his opinion until someone else had finished fixing something. But above all, he learned to be quiet. One evening, after everyone else had gone home, Grayson sat alone in front of a pile of old air filters. Ariel walked over and placed a can of soda beside him. "You can quit. I won't judge." "No, I won't quit. Because of pride. Because I've never truly finished anything, except signing checks." She said nothing for a moment, then added, "Next week there's an electric vehicle summit in Detroit. They invited me to be the keynote speaker. For your design. For realizing some of the best minds don't live in ivory towers. And will you go? I'm not sure. I don't know if they'll listen out of curiosity or respect." Grayson handed her a notebook. Leather-bound. Old. Inside were hand-drawn diagrams hybrid drivetrain schematics annotated in pencil. This is me trying to recreate your design. I didn't understand everything, but I tried to learn. Why? So that if you ever stand on that stage, I can be in the audience and not have to clap out of politeness. I want to understand what you truly say. Ariel didn't reply. She paused still. Then she walked outside, saying nothing more. But her shoulders were lighter than the day he met her. The next morning, Grayson arrived before she did. His hands were greasy but no longer clumsy. He was reassembling the control module on a second pickup truck. For the first time, no one told him how. For the first time, he wasn't the boss, he was the mechanic. National EV Summit, Detroit, 2,000 people in attendance. More than half were lead engineers from America's largest auto companies. Outside, a banner read, "Keynote Speaker, Ms. Ariel Monroe, Master Hybrid Architect." Backstage. The door opened. Grayson was waiting. His shirt was slightly wrinkled, and he had a bottle of water in his hand. No longer a CEO, not a VIP guest, just a man who had learned when to step forward and when to serve. Ariel approached. Navy blue jumpsuit, hair in a neat bun, no jewelry. Only one thing stood out, the iron ring of her father now shimmering with dried grease. "You ready?" he asked. "I don't think anyone's ever truly ready to speak in front of people who once overlooked them. Then do what machines have always taught us." "What's that?" "Don't wait to be recognized. Just run right, and let them catch up later." The MC walked on stage. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our keynote speaker." Grayson raised his hand. "Excuse me. Before she steps out, I'd like to say something. Something I didn't dare to say months ago." The room stirred. Grayson walked forward. No microphone, just his voice, steady, slow, and real. "My name is Grayson Thorne. I used to think I was the most intelligent man in the room. But then a woman with grease-stained hands taught me something, that intelligence without listening. It's just educated arrogance. Today I'm not introducing an engineer. I'm introducing a person who taught me how to fix myself." Ariel stepped out to applause, not wild, but genuine. On stage, she didn't read slides. She didn't list credentials. She spoke about what every machine needs to function well, and what every person needs to be seen. It's not power, not titles. It's precision, patience, and someone who believes that their hands are worthy of touching something delicate. At the end of her speech, the entire room rose. Grayson wasn't the first to stand. It was the old mechanic from Harlem, the one she'd once fixed a car for free of charge. One man, then 10, then 2,000, all standing for a girl once pushed away from a Ferrari because of her skin and the oil on her hands. That night, Ariel sat barefoot on the steps behind the venue, gloves in hand. Grayson approached. "May I ask something?" "What do you forgive me?" "I forgave you the day you came back to the garage. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. I'm not asking you to forget. I hope one day you'll let me fix what I broke, the way you once fixed that car." Ariel didn't answer. She placed a small bolt into his palm. "Start here, slowly, but make it real. And from there." A new project was born, the Monroe Initiative, where Ariel led a diverse team of engineers training teens expelled from technical schools for being unqualified. Ferrari commissioned her hybrid design, and Grayson, after 18 years as CEO, resigned, becoming a field operations supervisor. At the same little garage in Harlem, some engines don't roar, they whisper, and only those who respect the silence can truly bring them back to life. Ariel Monroe,